Hello and welcome everyone to our webinar, which we've titled From Inventory Management to Patient Safety, the Future of RFID in Pharma. We're very excited to have all of you join us today. My name is Barbara van Rymenam. I'll be kicking off and facilitating today's discussion. I'll start by quickly introducing myself. So I head up the Intelligent Labels healthcare business with Avery Dennison. Avery Dennison is a global material science and digital identification solutions company. And our vision is that every single physical item will actually have a unique digital identity and a digital life. And in our Intelligent Labels business, we are specialized in designing RFID inlays and manufacturing RFID inlays at large scale. So we're producing tens of billions of RFID inlays a year out of our 8 manufacturing locations worldwide. And we're actually broadcasting today live from our Avery Dennison headquarters here in the Netherlands. But more importantly, I'm joined today by some exceptional panelists here with deep industry expertise. So I'd like to introduce them to you. First of all, I'd like to welcome Jason Satterlee. He's a Senior Director, New Business Planning and Innovation Team Lead, as well as Erin Pezant, Director of Innovation Customer Technology, both with Pfizer. And Pfizer is obviously a very large, a global leader in the biopharmaceutical industry. Also with us today is Nick Petersen. Nick, you're joining us on behalf of Bluesight as the VP Corporate Development. Bluesight is a leading company in the health technology sector, basically providing like a suite of solutions that are really aimed at simplifying some of the very complex hospital and pharmacy operations. Also welcome to Susanne. Susanne Hazrati is joining us as the Global Marketing Manager for UCode at NXP Semiconductors. NXP is a global leader in secure connectivity solutions. And last but not least, my colleague, Peter Bloch. He's the Market Development Manager for Healthcare, also for Avery Dennison. Before we really kick things off, just a quick reminder, this is a live webinar, so we have a question and answer function. So you can enter any question during our discussion here in the chat box. And if we don't get through all the questions today, we'll make sure to follow up with you afterwards. The panel discussion will likely take about 40 to 45 minutes, so we should have ample time to answer some of your questions. All right, so let's look at the topics that we have teed up for you today. So we know that many of you are likely familiar with RFID technology, but some of you possibly aren't, and this is still a relatively new technology in the space, like in pharma and in healthcare. So we'll just touch on explaining the basics around RFID, and then we'll sort of go into, okay, technology has been around for quite a while, even in pharma. There may have some challenges in the beginning. So we'll cover sort of what those challenges could have been and how how we've sort of got across those from a technological perspective. And I do want to highlight the power of partnership as well. In the end, we're like 4 large organizations represented here today, and we really worked together to come up with some of these innovative solutions. And then we'll go into the actual panel discussion. All right, so RFID technology. So RFID stands for radio frequency identification and is basically like a wireless communication technology. So it's something that you cannot see, yet it connects billions of everyday items to the internet, which truly enables businesses and consumers to sort of identify, locate, authenticate, and even engage with everyday items throughout the life cycle of the actual item. We're depicting a syringe here, so you can imagine it's maybe a syringe that's filled with a drug. And when you think of an RFID tag, you really need to think about it as like a unique digital passport. So when a tag is attached to an item, like a syringe, it really acquires its own unique identity, its own digital life. And from an infrastructure perspective, you would typically use a reader, and that RFID reader emits like radio waves, and it are the radio waves that actually power up the microchip that's on the tag, which allows it to sort of read the data that's stored on it. And then that data is being fed fed into your enterprise business application or customer business applications. And what that does is it really gives you a comprehensive view of your inventory of every single item, and it helps you manage your inventory better, especially when you start tagging at the source, so at the manufacturing level, all the way to the final point of usage. And it gives you a world of possibilities in terms of how you manage that inventory. And you can drive a lot of like advanced analytics on that data as well. So when we look at the main features or benefits associated with RFID technology, there are many actually when you compare to some of the more traditional identification and tracking methods. So first of all, it's a proven technology, and especially in some of the consumer goods, like certain industry have widely adopted RFID. And I'll throw out some brand names out there, but I'm sure everybody is familiar with companies like Zara or Decathlon or Walmart. They have been adopting RFID a long time ago. It's widely adopted. And they use it to, again, manage their inventory to make sure that they have full visibility on where their items are, to make sure the right product is available at the right time to their consumers. Second, it's really connecting that physical with that digital. So when you think about like a comparison, like a barcode, if you try to scan an item with a barcode, it may give you information about the batch information, or it may give you information about the product type. But what RFID does, it really gives you like at an item level serialization. So in the pharmaceutical industry, having a unique identification for your product, for your drug product, as an example, that is really important, and it can drive a lot of value. It can help combat like counterfeiting or diversion, because you're making your supply chain so very transparent, secure, and trustworthy. Another element or benefit is that it's really fast, accurate, and efficient. So as I explained before, it's the RFID reader that really powers up the chip. And you don't even need line of sight. So you don't need to be close to the item to be able to scan it and read it. It can actually scan many items simultaneously, again, without line of sight, and even in high density situations. And then lastly, just to clarify, like the RFID tags we're discussing today, they don't have a battery. So they're being powered up by the RFID reader. So that basically means if you don't have batteries, your entire maintenance and infrastructure around it is fairly low maintenance, if you will. So Jason, I would actually like to turn it over to you. I would like to hear about your insights and experiences when it comes down to RFID implementation in pharma.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. I appreciate it, and it's great to be here. So RFID, as we know, is a technology that's certainly not new. It's been around for many, many decades here. And really the concept of utilizing RFID with medications is not new either. In fact, when you look at a company like Pfizer, who embraces innovation and is always out looking for new, novel ways to help deliver breakthroughs that change patients' lives, it's no surprise that Pfizer looked at RFID about 20 years ago to use with its medications. What we found, though, at that time was that where the technology was not able to overcome several of the challenges that we have with utilizing RFID with medications. And we'll talk about those challenges here in a little bit, but the technology back then was just not where it needed to be. And so we put it on the back burner for quite some time. And about 4 years ago, we picked up RFID again, started looking into it and exploring it. And what we found was that the technology as it stands today is really light years beyond where it was 20 years ago. And a lot of that's due to the amazing efforts by organizations like NXP, Avery Dennison, and Bluesight to bring the technology to where we need it today, where we can use it on medications effectively. It can overcome the various challenges. And we're excited here to be able to soon offer pre-labeled medications for our hospital customers to be able to utilize and really take advantage of the technology.
That's great. Thank you, Jason. Nick, can you maybe speak about some of the physical and technical challenges or limitations that Bluesight faced as you were trying to sort of deploy RFID for your KitCheck solutions?
Sure, absolutely. In a general sense, UHF RFID would prefer to have kind of a specific set of a specific environment that it's operating in. Ideally, objects are air-gapped. There's some kind of a space between them. Ideally, the tag is applied to a flat surface. Ideally, we don't have, materials like liquids, foils, glass involved in the payload. Ideally, the object that's applied to is pretty big, and there aren't too many of them, and they're not too densely packed. The issue with the use case that really ended up breaking through and being sort of the foundation of RFID on pharmaceutical products today is it's all of those things. It is small objects made of glass filled with liquid in the presence of foils in high densities in large numbers. And so the truth of the matter is probably 15 years ago, it just simply was not possible. Somewhere between 12 and 15 years ago, through the work of organizations like Avery and NXP, the sensitivity of the tags started to get to the point where you could start to do it. And that was luckily for us, when we started our company and started making these products. So I think now the challenge is inside of the hospital, not the labor challenge or the management challenge, but we'll talk about that more later, are largely fixed. The set of challenges that we're facing now is, well, how do we level this up to the manufacturer? Because there's a new set of things that you deal with there in terms of line qualification and can you get time on the line and integration with existing serialization systems. So the complexity goes up. You kind of solve one problem and uncover a bigger one, but that's why we're all here.
Exactly. Thank you, Nick. And you alluded to it, obviously, some of the initial hurdles, and we have NXP here and Avery Dennison. NXP is it's specialized in designing ICs and drives a lot of innovation when it comes to the chips itself. And then Avery Dennison sort of leverages those designs and designs RFID tags that can work under these difficult circumstances. Can you talk a little bit about how technology evolved and how we were able to sort of overcome some of these initial hurdles?
Yeah, sure. So as Nick mentioned, we kind of overcame these challenges we see in the healthcare, in the pharma industry. But the technology itself, it really evolved, it developed in the recent years. So spotlighting now on the chip, we demonstrate a dramatic increase in the sensitivity, meaning we deliver a performance which can meet the demand of the pharma industry. We deliver consistent read rates with that, and we can read around 1,000 objects per second with the latest technologies here. This high performance also enables smaller tags, so we come up with smaller chips that also enable smaller tags. And handing over to you now, Peter, from the tag side. So what beneficial is on that for the healthcare market?
Yeah, so certainly with all those improvements, we've at Avery Dennison have been able to step up and capitalize on them by making smaller tags. I think we make one of the world's smallest RFID inlays. We also created a tag mini dose specifically for the pharmaceutical marketplace that is meant to go on liquid, is small and meant to handle curvature. We have tags that are flagged to avoid metal and foils. We have all kinds of custom and specialized designs that address some of the challenges that Nick had talked about. But the technology, we're asking about what's changed. Of course, a lot has changed, and it seems like the world's moving faster every day. The cliche is COVID started some of that. And certainly in healthcare, that was a big factor. You ended up losing a lot of labor and having a lot more urgency in those healthcare settings. And RFID technology can really aid in taking some of that stress away from healthcare workers and ensuring them that they're making the right decision, that they have the right tools and medicines in line to do so and to help that patient. Also, infrastructure at the hospital has changed dramatically with technology in the last few years. And you're seeing a lot of different solution providers stand up RFID applications so that the hospital employees and staff are leveraging those. And then they're learning that tagging is providing a real ROI for them. but it also takes it's a new labor source, and they're turning upstream to manufacturers to tag ahead of time so that they don't have to do that tagging, which drives a need for consistency and interoperability between systems. So we're seeing those changes happen now too. And then again, there's a lot of patient needs that come into consideration with the technology. We're all driving towards patient safety, but it can also help authenticate drugs and ensure that they're not counterfeit. It can look at expiration and efficiency in the supply chain from the beginning to the end. And those are all changes that we look forward to the technology enabling in the future.
Maybe adding to this, so we're continuously working on our roadmap, so we go even further, right? And that's the beauty of our collaboration also, that we want to solve also more complex applications in this area as well.
Exactly.
Great points, exactly. And sort of, it's been my personal experience actually in this industry that strategic partnerships, strong partnerships, and a cohesive ecosystem actually really drive effective solutions. And I think we sort of demonstrate that today as well. We've had like great progress in the last couple of years, and that's really thanks to the key players here around the table. So. From Pfizer's perspective, like it being so crucial for you to sort of drive adoption of source tagging to really start tagging at the manufacturing level. For Bluesight, that have been critical in driving value for hospitals and pharmacies thanks to their analytical insights. We have NXP that continuously innovates chip technology, and then Avery Dennison, who sort of leverages that chip technology and combines it with our material science expertise and the way we design our inlays in order for them to perform into very challenging circumstances. So really, this is like a long-term collaboration between the four of us, which has really produced like tangible, market-ready solutions. So we're now ready to sort of move into the panel discussion, and we've collectively teed up a couple of topics. So maybe like a first question for the panel, it's maybe something that Erin, you can lead us off with, but why do you think there is RFID interest, like specifically growing in the healthcare industry, and why is it happening now?
Thank you. No, we do see RFID interest growing in healthcare, and much of that is being driven really by our customers. Our customers are utilizing RFID today to mainly streamline their inventory management processes, which comes at a critical point when pharmacy technician shortages are continuing to challenge their daily operations. RFID offers them real-time visibility into medication movement, status, and essentially just brings them efficiencies that they otherwise would not have without RFID. I've spoken to a lot of our customers that have RFID, and those that do have RFID are extremely passionate about its benefits. However, there is one consistent pain point, and that we've probably all heard, and that is that manual tagging process, having to tag each and every vial of medication and then doing what's called an association. This takes time for our customers. Time is costly and actually can introduce a risk of error because this is a manual process. And that's where companies like Pfizer can make a real impact here. By tagging at the source, we're eliminating that need for downstream tagging and association. So we're saving our customers time and cost, and essentially we believe that this will also help accelerate the market adoption of RFID going forward.
I think I'd add there also that growth is really happening because the hospitals and personnel see so much value in the applications that have been installed there that the push to take the tagging process away from in-house to back to the manufacturing point is very promising to them. And by doing that, today in the marketplace, maybe 52 or more billion tags are used. More and more are being used in healthcare every year. But when you start to make efficiencies of tagging at source instead of tagging at hand or piece by piece to gain your ROI, it just doubles the growth or more. And so I think that's why we're seeing a lot of growth right at this time.
Absolutely.
And so when we speak about like in-hospital application, can you talk a little bit about how RFID is indeed being used today? You alluded to it a little bit already, but Susanne and Peter, can you talk a little bit about the use cases that you're seeing in hospitals today?
Yeah, sure. So Peter was just mentioning how huge the RFID market in general is, and for sure, in the several years before now, we're really scaling up RFID in medication management. There are use cases in hospitals where RFID has been used for many, many years already. Inventory management, as such, the application is the application to be seen in various areas. The real-time tracking of different assets, is it medicine, people, surgical instruments, wheelchairs, any kind of asset you have in a hospital, it's key to understand where those things are. I want to spotlight the surgical instruments tracking. So it's really key for surgery to know, okay, what's in the operation room, what has been already used. The retention of surgical instruments is a severe problem in hospitals nowadays. We see also the challenge of drug diversion. So around 10% of all clinicians divert controlled substances. That's also a very severe issue in hospitals. But speaking of medication management, Peter, I think you can bring more light into that, how it's used today.
Yeah, I mean, Bluesight is championing the medication management with their kit check solution in many, many hospitals today across the U.S. And really that is addressing expiration, inventory distribution within the hospital, having it in the right place at the right time for the right patient, and as well as managing any recalls that might come in for those medicines to make sure that it's a patient safety focus. Besides that, the hospital is also using RFID in very other aspects, like Susanne had mentioned all today, hand washing, assets and badges management, even for food in the hospital is being managed by RFID in some cases. So it's quite widespread within that healthcare setting.
Thank you. And initially we know RFID technology was sort of deployed, especially focused to sort of manage inventory. And maybe a question for Nick or for Bluesight. How can RFID technology move beyond just managing inventory to directly impacting patient safety?
Yeah. Well, to your point, most of the systems that are in hospitals today are counting some number of things in the place that they're supposed to be or before they're sent out to that place. And that has some patient safety benefit all on its own, because making sure the things that are close to the patient at the time that they're going to need them are there and aren't expired and aren't recalled, like that is a patient safety consideration. But I think your question's more about like how can we start to move towards more active clinical systems consuming this information. And it's sort of probably kind of a Maslow's hierarchy thing where there are some easier things to do that have less of a profound effect and you have to work your way up the pyramid, where, you know, right now there's all these inventory systems, but they're not integrated. You might have perpetual inventory systems like Epic Willow Inventory or BD Logistics, something like that, where that's your singular view of what's going on in your organization and your facility. And right now, kind of regardless of what RFID vendor you've chosen, they're not speaking to those systems. So that's one thing that we at Bluesight will try to solve so that we're now visible and integrated into those clinical systems. Because then, once you are, can you take the next step towards, you know, there's not a whole lot of RFID going on with patient-specific prep. If we're compounding something in-house and sending it out to the patient, well, how long is it good for before it's been administered, before it should be thrown away? Where is it in the process of being delivered, and is it going to get to the patient in time for what it is bound for? And then when you can get to that point of I have an understanding of what your patient population is, then you can have a dynamic understanding of what your inventory is. It's no longer our PAR is 10, it's we have 5 patients in that department, they're all going to need 1 vial. Par is 7 for today because it is dynamic to what's happening. Open orders, admitted patients, procedures that are scheduled. And this all kind of works its way up to, some eventual solutions that will not, frankly, be Bluesights to fix, because we don't really think of ourselves as a patient care organization. We think of ourselves primarily as providing kind of operational, financial, and compliance value to our customers. But eventually, if enough of these things are RFID tagged, then their presence relative to the patient and even scanning them prior to administration becomes possible. Because a manufacturer's label is a 2D barcode that has an NDC in it. An RFID tag is a serial number associated with a literally unlimited amount of information in the cloud as to what it is and who it's for and what we can do with it. And so not every single one of these problems will be a problem that Bluesight as a vendor will apply itself to. But what we think of ourselves as doing is putting in the infrastructure so that the right party to solve that problem can go and solve it when the time is right.
Yeah, makes sense. A ton of value there. So
I think
Peter.
I'd add to that, when you talk about patient safety, if you can increase the time that caregivers have to care for patients, you automatically increase the safety. So when you have such detailed information getting into systems that then humans don't have to, can depend on to make decisions instead of making an approximate decision themselves, it frees them up to think about care more and about safety more. And I think that adds a lot as well.
Yeah, great point. Thank you, Peter. Let's maybe pivot to the characteristics of the tag itself. So maybe this is something that, Jason, you can lead us off on. So why are low memory tags particularly beneficial for the healthcare industry, especially considering current trends?
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. Appreciate it. So let's first define what a low memory tag is, because we're getting pretty technical in some of the technicalities within RFID. So when you look out there, there's primarily, and I know there's a lot of different types of tags out there, but primarily it's going to be a low memory or high memory tag. A low memory tag is one in which it contains about 128 bits of information on it. So it's not very much. It's usually a serial number of some sort or some unique identification of some sort. And what happens with those tags is once they're read, then that information goes into either into the cloud or into some kind of reference system there to then identify exactly what that medication is, what's the the NDC or the product code on that, the lot number and expiration date. So that's typically how the low memory tags work. And when, again, a couple of years ago when Pfizer got back into looking at RFID, we really did our homework and looked at all the various different nuances of the technology and to try to understand and figure out what is the best route to take, what's the best path to take in the healthcare market, right? Given all the various different trends, market trends, pressures, that sort of thing there. And what we found is that the low memory tag actually offers a lot of benefit to the space for many different reasons. I'll just list a couple here on this. So when you look at low memory tags here, it really allows us to drive cost efficiency in the technology as well as scalability. So let me talk about that here in a little bit. From a cost efficiency perspective, when you look at, and Peter referenced earlier here, the 52 billion tags that are manufactured a year across all industries here, a vast majority of those are low memory tags. And what we know, and if you go back to your economics classes in school, I'll tell you the more something is manufactured, the more volume you get, the lower your costs are, right? So we're able to piggyback on that volume, that massive volume of tags being produced, to help enjoy some of those lower costs there, right? Which is critical in the healthcare market today, because as we all know, if you read a newspaper, you look at turn on the news here, it's all about lowering healthcare costs. Our customers today are under vast pressure to lower their cost, right, or to lower their budgets and whatnot. So we're looking to be able to bring a technology to market that helps them do that there. And a low memory tag will help us do it because it's a low cost alternative to this. The other piece is scalability. As I mentioned, a low memory tag is using a cloud to to identify exactly what the medication is. So what this cloud is allowing us to do is scalability, right? It's going to allow us to not only solve the challenges that we have today, but also solve the challenges that we're going to try to resolve tomorrow, right? As we progress in technology. The last piece I'll say is, and why this is critical, especially in labeling medications, is the size of these tags. And Peter mentioned it earlier, one of the offerings that Avery Dennison offers is a very small low memory tag. Now, a reason why that's critical is if you look at all the medications that are being used within a hospital, many of the critical medications come in very, very small vials, sometimes 2 ml vial, which is very small. And a low memory tag that has a small footprint allows us to still utilize RFID even on those small medications, right? So we're able to not be hindered by the tag size to determine what critical medications we want to include with the RFID technology. So those are just a few of the many benefits that we have found that low memory tags help bring to the market. So again, it's affordability, it's scalability, and again, the size of the tag itself allows us flexibility in the medications that we are able to offer pre-tagged.
Great points.
Yeah, I think just adding on to that, like from Bluesight's perspective, when we first looked at this industry and kind of developed this market in the early going, to us it seemed clear. To date we've registered hundreds and hundreds of millions of items in our database that either our customers have tagged themselves and therefore is a tag produced by us, or we've been working with a partner in order to do that. Which is to say, Bluesight has probably been involved in tagging 10 times as many injectable pharmaceutical goods as anybody else during that period of time, maybe than anybody else combined during that period of time. But even that number, whether it's 400 or 500 million or whatever the case may be today, I haven't looked at the report recently. That's nothing compared to the industries that consume the majority of the tags. The way that we look at this problem is these are all solved problems, and they're solved problems because you get to stand on the shoulders of giants. You get to go in behind the aerospace industry and the defense industry, and most importantly, retail, and learn from their experiences. And the retail model, it's the same everywhere for everything on every article, and that is you have a license plate that is pre-programmed, that is already in that tag or label, that is then applied to it, that is then associated with that item, in some kind of a database later for the purposes of looking it up and identifying it. And much to Jason's point, what that did is it drove a ton of volume into a limited number of designs that then were produced in very large quantities, thus lowering their price and making the entire solution more affordable to everyone. And so when we looked at this problem and decided to approach it, we thought, well, this is going to be the winning strategy because this has been the winning strategy in every other industry so far to date. And so it will win again here. And thus far, that's been, largely borne out. Specifically, I suspect, for the reasons that Jason outlined, because there are several designs, one of them being the mini dose. The mini dose is certified by Auburn University's ARC Lab Specification S, for anybody wondering, on every single article that we've evaluated for Pfizer. So instead of having a bunch of custom designs that are all made in low volumes, that are therefore made on low volume manufacturing equipment, that therefore have, higher tolerances in terms of their quality and variation one-to-one, and higher prices, I don't know how many mini doses we're making each year, but it's a lot. And it works on almost every article, and it's incredibly price competitive. And the way that it's been designed, you, as a manufacturer, you choose mini dose, and when a new U-code product comes out, guess what? mini dose gets more sensitive. So you've chosen your platform, and your platform is actually getting better as time goes on because that design is getting updated. You don't need to go to your label converter and change the die cut. You don't need to change your design. You drop the same thing in, you get better performance. And, again, there's nothing novel about this. Bluesight has invented nothing. This is just what Walmart and Target, and Nike and Uniqlo and Decathlon have been doing for a decade, and all we're proposing is that no new and novel solution is required to a old and perfectly solved problem.
Maybe I add something to this. Just a conclusion. With the statements you're making now, how many billions are used in the market already, we see that this is really a mature technology. And I think that's really important. It's a reliable technology, and I think the pharma industry, especially when it's about patient safety, you need reliable technologies used in your processes for your product. So I think that's really important to mention here.
I can only agree. Very important points. I want to stay with Nick for a second. So when we look at it from the hospital's perspective, so what should they consider when they want to implement RFID technology?
Yeah. I won't talk about vendor evaluation or anything because I would just be talking my own book here. But I think outside of the bounds of who are you going to select as your vendor, and you should select Bluesight, our products are excellent. I think the biggest thing is if you take a look at the net impact of putting in a system like KitCheck, you're probably going to save 80 to 90% of the staff time that you put into processing those kits and trays before. But the 10 to 20% of that time that's left over is going to almost exclusively be a task that you've never done before, which is tagging. And then you're going to have to keep a separate inventory of those tagged things so that they're available at the time that you need them when you're restocking those kits and trays. And so I think it's actually really more about the internal process management to support it than it is, a technological consideration. You're going to have space. You're going to have staff. The net result is your staff are going to have more time, but some member of staff is going to be dedicated to a process that you don't support today, you don't have a shift scheduled for today, and you will need to support and have a shift scheduled for in the future. So I think managing that process becomes, kind of the primary consideration in terms of what's going to be different after the fact. I know I'm going to save a lot of time, but something's going to be different. What is it? And it's really that. And if your vendor isn't walking you through that, then, that's a problem because there will be changes to your operations required.
One thing I'll add too here, just to add on to that piece there is, this, as you mentioned, RFID in healthcare is not new, right? In fact, there's been a lot of hospitals that recently have been converting to RFID technology. And Erin and I have crisscrossed the United States talking to many, many hospitals out there about, their RFID systems, how they're using it, that sort of thing. Just really getting educated on the technology and the use cases that our hospital customers are seeing here. And one thing we found is that the hospitals that have implemented RFID, they're very proud of it, and they should be. They've done something that is absolutely amazing in helping to streamline workflow and that sort of thing. And so if you're a hospital looking to get into the RFID technology, really to understand how this can help you, what's the benefits, reach out to any hospital that has already done it or any health system that has already done it. We found is that those folks are more than willing to talk to you about it, more than willing to tell you how they did it, what things to consider. There's nobody better out there to discuss what to consider when looking at implementing RFID than someone who's already done it, right? And like I said, the community out there seems to be wide open about sharing what they've done and their benefits and whatnot. So really recommend just reaching out to your colleagues who have already done it there.
Thank you, Jason. So what we've also seen recently is really that growing trend towards tagging at source, which we all welcome very much. So I wanted to ask you, maybe Jason, what benefits do you see tagging upstream?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and unfortunately, we don't have a couple hours to talk about this because there's so many benefits to this here. But I'll touch on a few of them. And when we talk about tagging at the source or tagging upstream, what we mean is the manufacturer applying the tag during the manufacturing process of the medication itself. There. So, but what I'll do is I'll cover it from an economics perspective and then from an efficiency perspective here. When you look at it from an economics perspective, right? A manufacturer like Pfizer, manufacture medications with RFID, we're going to be manufacturing millions and millions and millions of units, right? So just a lot of our medications and the volume that we'll have will come with RFID labels on them. And with that means that we're going to be able to buy these RFID tags in bulk, right? So we're going to be doing a lot of bulk purchases, which, as we know, when you buy typically material in bulk, you're able to get a better price on them here. So we're going to be able to lower the price or cut some cost out of the space here by us using our economies of scale and buying these the RFID tags in bulk there. You know, much more so than if you were to try to buy the labels as one hospital out there. So we're going to use our economies of scale to help drive some of the cost out of the system here. Secondly, from an efficiency perspective, and Erin touched on this a little bit earlier, it comes with what hospitals are currently doing today who have adopted RFID, right? You have someone in the pharmacy that is hand labeling thousands of these medications every day, right? That's what they do. They hand label medications. And in doing so, it's not just, slapping a label onto a vial and saying that's it. They have to place the label in such a way that it's not going to cover up any of the critical information on the vial label itself. So it's quite a tedious process. And on top of that, once they're done doing that, they now have to associate each one of those tags. And association, again, means you're telling the system, hey, I've got this tag that may be serial number 12345. That is associated with this medication, this product number, this lot number, this expiration date, right? And when you're doing that and doing that over and over again, and you get human intervention, an error could occur. You get a misassociation error to occur here. By the manufacturer doing this for you, we're able to label those medications very rapidly through our manufacturing process. So as the vials are running through our lines there, we're able to label the products each with an RFID tag. And then we're going to associate as well on the line. So as the vials go down the line, we're saying, okay, this tag is identified with this product, NDC number, lot number, expiration date, so on and so forth. And then it's going to go through a number of QA checks at the end to make sure that we've got the tag is one, functional, that it did not break or was not damaged during the manufacturing process, and two, it's been associated properly. So that way we can assure 100% that the medications are going out the doors of our manufacturing plants are accurate and correct. And all the hospital customer needs to do is just purchase this product. You purchase the product, you receive it, you just put it on your shelf. There's nothing more you need to do other than to start using it. So it'll take a lot of the current work out of the workflow, and will help cut down on potential misassociation errors, as well as we are assuring that association at the manufacturing site itself. So those are just a few of the many, many advantages that exist by having a manufacturer label at the source.
Thank you. So we talked about some of the significant advancements we've seen in RFID technology. So I'm now looking more towards some future-looking statements from the panel. So what do we think does the future hold for RFID technology in the healthcare industry, let's say in 5 years from now? Maybe Erin, if you want to lead us off.
Sure. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. I see the future of RFID as very promising. 5 years from now, I would love to see RFID embedded in not only operational, but clinical workflows as well. So I'm a nurse, and when I first started looking at RFID about 4 years ago, of course I saw the benefits that pharmacies are getting from RFID, but I also saw past the pharmacy because of my background. And there are many benefits that RFID can bring all the way to the point of administration at the bedside of that medication. So, I want you to imagine if we could integrate in the future with the different hospital systems that are out there, with the monitoring systems, the EHR systems, and what we could do. Imagine a nurse walking into a patient's room and getting a real-time alert that a wrong medication, is in that room, or a nurse walks into a patient's room and gets a trigger or an alert that, not to deliver this medication because maybe that patient's heart rate is too low and it's contraindicated, for that. So, this adds an extra layer of clinical decision support for not only, like I said, for our pharmacists, but also for our nurses. So this is where I really see this going in the future. I know that this is a stretch in thinking. We are not close to that just yet, but it's going to take steps. There's a process, but I fully believe that we can get there. And ultimately make a shift from not only just an inventory management technology, but making RFID also a patient safety technology as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's so much exciting that's happening in the future that I really get jazzed up about it and talking about it. But as we talked about, there's going to be more tagging at the source. So it helps those healthcare workers when it comes in and it's ready to be used. I also agree that there is going to be much more focus on patient safety. So, it is there today when you're looking at expiration and recalls and making sure the right drugs are in the right place at the right time. But in the future, I envision really the technology helping drive decisions for patients and improving their outcomes, their medication regimen outcomes. And that can be at home, where maybe they're connecting by RFID to answers that they might have about their medication, or reminders on how to take it or when to take it, and addressing any questions that medication management might have posed to them. They could also check to see that it's authentic, because we all know that there's more and more counterfeiting, especially for high-value drugs today. I also see the future. Most of the drugs are injectables that are being tagged and are more generic, I would say generic drugs, if I can use that term. But there'll be specialty drugs tagged, almost made for patient drugs. And the technology will allow you to track and ensure that you're pairing that specific made for you drug with the right patient. And I see that increasing more in the future too.
Yeah, maybe let me add from a technology perspective, where we see the technology is moving in the next 5 years and what can it change in the pharma/healthcare industry. So you mentioned authentication. We have products available for that. I see it coming also in the healthcare industry, especially when we talk about high-value goods, high-value medication, high-value drugs, to add another piece of a security in terms of communication between different systems. And you mentioned, Peter, the patient engagement, right? That the patient at home can interact with the medication, with the drugs, can get answers to questions they might have, the medication adherence, etc. How can this work? And nowadays, a lot music is around the topic that there might be a huge F reader in smartphones. Maybe the next 5-7 years, then can happen, and then patient engagement with medication can happen. Nowadays, RFID is limited in that sense that it ends with the point of dispense, meaning in the hospitals, in the pharmacies, but we can get to the end of the road, right? To the home of the patients. And that, I think, adds another layer of patient safety.
Yeah, and speaking to this, one more point is, as you go to that patient home, the whole cold chain to get there for medications that need monitoring, I think those type of sensing, whether it's temperature or vibration, in addition to your location and what you are going to be added on to the RFID technology, and the information flow is just going to get broader and broader and more automated without any operational input. And we all know that operational input causes errors, so when it's automated that way, it just starts to take care of itself, and that's really exciting from a patient safety standpoint.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, some very exciting things to look forward to. I'm not exactly sure how we are on time, but I'm sure we have some time left actually to answer some of the questions. So I'm going to hand it over to Jenny Krohn, who's actually going to manage the question for us as a moderator.
Thank you, Barbara. We've received quite a few questions. The first one is from Pfizer. What would be your tips to a pharma or healthcare manufacturing company looking to start implementing RFID?
Yeah, I'll take that one here. So a couple of things come to mind on this question here. And the first thing I would say is, number one, is you need to make sure that you have endorsement and support from your senior leadership. This is a fairly long process. It's a technical process, and it's going to require quite a bit of investment. Right, investment in your manufacturing lines and new systems, that sort of thing. So you're going to want to make sure that you have your support from your senior leadership on that. Secondly, I'd say you've got to have quite a bit of patience with it as well. Right, as I mentioned just previously, it is a highly technical process. Right, and you're adding this highly technical, complex process on top of an already complex process, which is manufacturing sterile medications, right? So you're adding to the complexity here. And it's not something you can come in and say on a Monday and say, I want to put RFID tags on my medications and expect by Friday that you're going to have it done. It's going to take quite a bit of time, quite a bit of research, investment, that sort of thing. So you have to have patience with the process to make sure that you're doing the right thing and that you're getting it right. And that's the most important thing. Is at the end of the day, you want to make sure you get it right. So you're not sending medications out into the market there that have RFID tags that don't read or are misreading and that sort of thing. So you want to make sure you get the process right. The third thing I would say is make sure you've got great engineers. I mean, they are a godsend here. And at Pfizer, we are very blessed to have some of the world's best manufacturing engineering on our staff here, and they are worth their weight in gold in that they are able to, be able to find solutions to complex situations, complex issues that will come up as you're trying to implement and start labeling your medications with RFID tags. So those would be the three things. So leadership support at the top there, having lots of patience, and really making sure you've got some good engineers that help work through some of the challenges that you will face there. But yeah, that's all I'd say.
Thank you, Jason. The next question is for Bluesight. Nick, from your experience, what have been the biggest challenges hospitals have faced when adopting RFID technology?
So you adopt RFID technology usually as a reaction to, the amount of staff, time, and labor you have going into some of these processes. And it's obvious to see why, right? During COVID, a lot of our, hospital customers just got hammered. I think at the time, 20% of technicians were turning over every year. 10% of organizations said that they lost over 40% of their technicians during COVID. And even today, even as recently as last year, 80% of DOPs are saying that they don't have enough techs, and 60% of them are saying that they don't have enough, clinical specialists or clinical coordinators. So there aren't enough hands to do the task, and now you're going to go and bring in something to do it. But kind of like what Pfizer is going through, in the short term, you're actually going to have more to do in order to manage that change in process. It does need to be budgeted for. On the spectrum of all your different technological processes, is it as big a deal as, we're getting Omnicell or we're putting in Epic? No. But, localized to your pharmacy, there is going to be an implementation process. There is going to be, a go live point. And so in that environment where you're already starved for resources, now you need to bring in technology to relieve the resources, but bringing in the technology will temporarily put stress on the same resources you don't have enough of. And so that balancing act and how you manage it, and you have to, right, because you have to get to the other side of it. You have to get to the point of freeing up those people's time, because, you know, what our customers are saying is, I have budget to fill these positions, but I don't have bodies. And so you have to make your way through it, but it's going to be a concerted effort, just like it is for a manufacturer, to make that change.
Thank you. There's another question for you as well. What specific types of data are collected from the RFID tags, and how can this be used for predictive analytics to improve supply chain forecasting or patient care?
Okay, interesting. So the tag itself, I mean, it's up to the manufacturer's discretion as to what's on the tag. But from our perspective as Bluesight, it's a license plate. It's a unique serial number, and all of the attributes are then associated with it up in the cloud. The important part is relating it then to the information coming out of those informatics systems. And the truth of the matter is that up to this point in time, most of the RFID vendors have not been going through that effort, and we're not an exception to that rule. Starting next year, we'll be integrated into the inventory management systems that customers have, and we view that as the first stepping stone to getting integrated into their clinical systems as well, because it's really about relating the things that, you know, for instance, Epic already knows to then the identity of these objects. It's really about like, okay, this is a patient-specific preparation. Is it composed of the right parts? Is it in the right formulation? Has it been prepared close enough to now that it is still safe to administer? Is it where it needs to be administered to that patient? Has it been administered to that patient? So it's really about like following that hierarchy of needs up. And the next step for us is integrate into inventory management. The step after that will be integrate into clinical systems. You could probably do that all in some kind of a data lake or abstraction layer today, but nobody's looking to sign up for custom projects. They want their vendor to do that. And so, you know, from our perspective as a vendor, we understand it to be part of our customer's expectation for us that we will do this. Not, you know, it doesn't feel very optional to us that we go and execute on this plan.
Thank you. The next question is for any of you. How does RFID relate to the Drug Supply Chain Security Act, DSCSA requirements?
Yeah. I'll take a stab at that first here, if you guys don't mind. So really the RFID we're talking about today here really does not relate to DSCSA, nor is it a requirement in DSCSA to have RFID embedded into the packaging. So if you look at the DSCSA requirements, it's about tracking and traceability of medications at the unit of sale level. So it's like the packaging level itself. The RFID we're speaking about today is being done at the unit of use level, all right? So at the individual vial level itself. And what we're looking at is more of labeling the medications with our RFID tags to help solve some of the challenges that are occurring in the pharmacy from an inventory management perspective, and then hopefully later from a patient safety perspective as technology continues to move forward here. But today there's not any requirement for RFID with DSCSA. That's not to say there won't be in the future, because there certainly could be an application for it. But as of it stands today, it's not a requirement for DSCSA there.
I'll add on some, Jason, to that. I mean, there has been proof of concepts out there that have happened in using RFID tagging at item level for compliance to DSCSA, and I think it definitely can be used as a tool to accomplish that. And maybe that's right for certain medications. It does save time. Because it is an automated feed of information, it could take a lot of time out of the compliance of DSCSA. But in order to enable that, infrastructure would have to be put throughout the whole supply chain, not just at one point of it. And that costs. And I think it's one of those future-looking opportunities that will come eventually, but maybe isn't just on the precipice of some of the most exciting opportunities in patient safety and others that we've talked about today.
Thank you, Peter. One last quick question before we close, and this one's for Pfizer. What types of medications does Pfizer expect to RFID tag first?
Yeah, so we're going with where the market is today. Whatever the medications are that are most commonly tagged today that Pfizer obviously has to offer and is in its portfolio are the ones that we are looking to come to market with, right? Because our, like I said, our goal is to come to the market with RFID medications that help streamline the current workflows of our customers here. So as we get closer to launching that, please reach out to your Pfizer hospital sales representative, and they'll be able to provide more detailed information on that. But it's going to be the most commonly RFID labeled or tagged, I shouldn't say labeled, but tagged medications today.
Thank you very much. That's all the time we have, and I'll hand it back to Barbara for closing.
Absolutely. So let me take a quick moment just to thank our panelists here for a very insightful presentation, good discussion, and definitely also everybody that has joined us online, a very big thank you for watching this webinar. And I assume that not all of the questions have been answered, but we'll make sure that we'll follow up afterwards, so all questions will be addressed by us. Thank you so much.